Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Elseworlds Exchange. I'm Sal.
And I'm Joel.
We're going to be talking about what Marvel Comics would look like today if there was no MCU. If the MCU never happened.
It's kind of perfect timing for it, too. I'm sure you read the same article headline I did, that very soon Kevin Feige and the MCU intelligentsia will be going on a big retreat to plot out the next decade's worth of the MCU. And I'm like, wow, really a whole other decade, man. That's so crazy to think. We've come this far. We have this far to go. And yeah, what would the comics look like without it? Because sometimes it's hard to tell who's really driving the bus anymore.
That's very true. And I think that Marvel would be in a very different place as a comic book publisher if there had never been an MCU. I don't necessarily even think it would be a bad thing.
Just different.
Just different. Because I don't want to necessarily get into the idea of like a true what if comic where it's like, well, what if they banked hard, Iron Man tanked, and then what Marvel Comics look like? Because that's a very different conversation.
I mean, if that happened, Marvel Comics may not even exist in the form we know it right now. It could have been chopped up and sold for parts by corporators. In fact, that basically seemed like where it was going, was it not for the success of Iron Man?
Absolutely. And I think around that time, Sony had already purchased Spider-Man, so I feel like Sony just would have been cranking out Spider-Man movies, and would have been very similar to how it is now, but just we would not be a few old fogies would be like, I remember when Spider-Man used to hang out with the X-Men and the Avengers and the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, wasn't that cool?
He never can again, you know. But but this is just saying, like, well, what if Marvel just didn't want to make movies and just focused entirely on being a book publisher like they really should have in the first place? And what's funny is there's been it's been a really long time that Marvel has been trying to make movies, and Marvel's always fancied itself like a Disney competitor, even before the acquisition. Marvel,
we're an IP farm.
Yeah, Marvel had always viewed themselves as a licensor and an IP farm. Marvel Films, Marvel Studios existed all the way back in the 90s. Marvel Studios was established in 96, but before that, it was Marvel Films. And
we're making films here, brother.
And I got to tell you, like, I remember the logo for Marvel Films because it was just a portmanteau of the original logo from Marvel Comics in the 90s, where it was Marvel on the top, and then a little, like, the M extended down, and then it said comics and script. Same exact thing, but films, and the little lower thing was a film strip.
Right.
Just, because there were artists working there. But obviously, of course, the funny thing is you'll hear a lot of names bandied about that sound familiar. Avi Arad.
Ooh, the toy man himself, Avi Arad.
Of Toy Biz in 1993 became the president and CEO of Marvel Films. So you can see, like, if you ever wonder, like, what does Avi Arad have to do with any of this? Avi Arad fancies himself the progenitor of Marvel Studios, of Marvel movies. Like, there wouldn't be Marvel movies without Avi Arad. And to a lesser extent, he's right, because of the News Corp merger and everything. They facilitated the licensing of Marvel characters through Marvel Films and made. I'm sorry, it was New World. That's what I was thinking of.
Yes.
They didn't make films. They made animated series. Some of your most beloved, by the way. X-Men, the animated series. Spider-Man, the animated series. The Incredible Hulk was a great animated series for a little while. That Marvel Action Hour. Which first season loathed and reviled by most fans and creators alike. I cite... I think it was a Peter David issue. I don't remember what issue it was, but there's a Fantastic Four comic book in which they're watching the first season of the Fantastic Four cartoon, and they loathe it.
Of course they do.
They're like, it looks so crappy. I'm like, yes, it does. But like Marvel Studios, their first movie, of course, after reestablishing themselves as Marvel Studios and licensing Blade, and I feel like I think they still would have done this. Like, do we want to go as far back as, like, when Blade made people think you could make movies based on Marvel characters? Or do you want to go, like, they didn't make movies at all? Like, there's no Nick Fury movie.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say, just if the MCU didn't happen, I was thinking, like, Iron Man 2008 doesn't happen.
I think that's fair. I think that's probably a smarter decision. Let's look at it that way. Like, Marvel Studios, they're like, we'll license them. Like, we're not a studio house. We're a license. We make comics. And remember, they were independent.
They were, yes,
or as independent as you can get. Like, they were owned by Toy Biz for a little while. Like, they were not they're not an independent like Image was, but I imagine that they would still. I guess the real point of divergence would have to be they didn't want to make movies because
they didn't roll the dice on it. They're like, no, we should really just stick to what we know. Movies are scary, uncharted territory. Feels like we could lose our shirt in that endeavor.
Well, plus, like, we're really bad at it. I don't know if you've seen some of our movies before even Marvel Films was established, but like the Captain America duology, not really connected, but still, like, Cap on a motorcycle, Cap with rubber ears. Pick one. The Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie, the ill-fated Spider-Man movie that was originally going to have like Michael Jackson and Stan Lee as J. Jonah Jameson. Like that.
Pretty bad.
Plus the TV movies, Thor appearing in the Trial of the Incredible Hulk, the Daredevil thing. What was it? Wasn't David Bowie going to do like a Daredevil movie or something?
Oh, yes, was interesting.
With Black Widow, Dolph Lundgren's Punisher.
Oh god,
and the ill-fated Doctor Strange movie there was one that was really crappy that was made in the 70s, and they were
I've seen that one.
Oh really? I've never seen it. I've never had the heart to sit down and watch that.
It is boring as fuck, but the costumes are actually pretty good.
Oh, cool.
Like the Sanctum actually looks like the Sanctum, and when he puts on the costume, it actually kind of looks like the costume. It takes forever to get there.
But and then there was that other one. There was going to be a Doctor Strange movie in like the late 80s, early 90s, and then they went, we're not going to do that, and they just changed the names.
Yes, and called it something else. Yes, I remember this.
I don't remember which one it was, but it was. But in any case, Marvel has always wanted to make movies. Like, that's the thing, is that Marvel has. And I remember in my unit, like here at the studio, we had a guy who was like a marketing guru from the 90s who worked with Marvel, and he's like, Marvel has always considered themselves like a Disney competitor.
That's very interesting.
They have a ton of IPs. They've always been like, we should have a theme park. We should have rides. We should have movies. We should have cartoon shows. Like, we should be a media empire.
I guess it makes sense when you have so many characters who are just part of the fabric of pop culture.
Yeah.
And like the North American zeitgeist there, like the things they do are verbs. Like, oh, he's hulking out right now.
I mean, the Hulk Hogan took the name from the Incredible Hulk, and in fact, that's why he went from Hulk Hogan to Hollywood Hogan to nothing.
I do believe it was Jeff Jarrett's father, or no, it was Jeff Jarrett's father's wife who gave Terry Boulder at the time the name Hulk, and she's like, wow, he's like the Incredible Hulk, he's so big.
Nice. But yeah, so we're gonna remove that element of DNA. Maybe how about this? They failed, and they don't want to try.
Yeah, Iron Man ends up being a total flop. People, turns out they really only do want to watch AAA superheroes, and they don't want to roll the dice and try something new.
Exactly. Like, we tried to make those awful movies in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I don't know why we tried in the 2000s, but we did. Iron Man didn't work out. The end, and we didn't lose our shirts, and we're still a publishing house.
Hey, it screwed it up. We didn't get Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. Tom Cruise actually got to be Tony Stark.
See, in 2008, I think Tom Cruise was still a box office. He was a movie star.
Right.
That would have gotten it. No, they had to go with like somebody like Josh Hartnett or something. Something where it's like somebody who's like, oh, I could imagine that, but also it didn't make any money.
Where the hell is Josh Hartnett these days?
He went away. I don't know what
really
happened.
did.
But okay, so 2008, Marvel Comics. What are they doing? What are they making?
I mean, we're still very much living in the shadow of Civil War post 2006 and everything. Iron Man doesn't get a popular movie, which I think does not repair his image in the greater fan consciousness, which means maybe he's still an asshole and still disliked by the broader fan base. And maybe World War Hulk doesn't come around and saves him. Maybe Tony stays a bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, Marvel, they already did that in The Crossing only 10 years prior. I don't know why they would want to do it again.
No.
But and I can imagine, because Marvel Comics would have been a comic book publisher, they would not have learned the lesson of like, let's get some Hollywood people in here. Although Marvel had already done that with Joe Quesada and his Hollywood contacts. Again, it all comes back to movies from Marvel. Like Joe Quesada's like, what am I going to do to prove that we know what we're doing? I'm going to get some Hollywood types and start writing our stuff. Also, I'm going to pillage the, what's funny about that? I'm gonna start pillaging the independent market. Doesn't that sound like a playbook right out of the Weinsteins? I'm gonna go to Sundance, I'm gonna pick up a whole bunch of independent movies, and then just put them out under my
young
banner.
And hungry. It'll work for peanuts.
No, I'm gonna take your movie and I'm gonna put it out. Like I know that the audience hasn't seen anything like this. I just grab the most marketable version of these independent films, put them out. I'll get the most marketable independent creators from the indie market, and then put them on a major licensed character.
Who were the most marketable indie talents back in 2008?
I mean, Brian Michael Bendis was still huge.
True.
Man, yeah.
It's hard to think back that far because
Brian K. Vaughan.
Right, because they're already the stars of today now. It's hard to remember. Oh yeah, you started as an indie guy, didn't you?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like what were some of like the bigger comics of the time. I mean, like that's funny too, because maybe they would have continued that playbook. Like that worked for them, and the movies didn't. So
let's keep Marvel Knightsing it up. Yeah.
Let's Marvel Knights this. Let's Marvel Knights that. I don't know. I mean, would Hickman have come around? Probably.
That's yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I'm thinking like, they were indie darlings at the time, weren't they?
Yeah. Matt Fraction, Bendis. Just if they had already gotten Kevin Smith, they probably would have also gotten Joss Whedon. Maybe Joss Whedon would have stuck around a little longer.
Maybe.
Maybe they would have plucked some other like critical darlings from the time. I cite Jeff Smith. You know, he had huge success in the 90s with Bone, and Razzle was doing fine with him too. So maybe Jeff Smith would have been, because Jeff Smith did that Shazam book. Maybe Marvel would have gobbled him up and put him on like a Fantastic Four or something kind of more all ages. Maybe Jeff Smith could have taken over for Runaways after
that would have been
after Vaughn.
Did they try and get like a Diablo Cody? Is Juno a thing yet? Like, hey, they're calling you the female Kevin Smith. Let's try and get you.
Well, the problem is, right, like, because Juno came out in 2007, so yes, they probably would have been thinking of Diablo Cody, but the problem is, don't forget the upper management at Marvel at this time and how women don't sell comics.
Oh, yes, was the prevailing ideology even back then.
But, there are exceptions. And of course, like, I can imagine them, because I mean, like Gail Simone, like was a name at that point still, and they would have been like, "Yo, like you're allowed one or two." I'm just thinking realistically. I'm not saying that women can't write comics, nor am I suggesting that like women directors shouldn't be in comics. I'm just saying
this
like
was the boys' club ideology of 2008 Marvel upper management.
And if Marvel hurt themselves trying to make movies again, they're reeling, they're going to retreat back into old habits, and they're, especially if like, I think by that point Bob Harris had already left and gone to DC.
Yes.
But Perlmutter's still upstairs signing the checks.
And we know we know his problems and hangups.
Exactly. You would have seen like Greg Pak. Probably. You probably would have seen he was probably building towards World War Hulk. Oh, Jason Aaron. Scalped.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Scalped was still huge at the time. Yeah, that's right.
I mean,
God, could you imagine that Jason Aaron at Marvel that much sooner?
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. Well, and especially if Marvel, because Marvel in 2008, the other thing is they are riding high from Civil War. Civil War got national media attention.
Biggest thing.
Big publications. They were making big swings with big characters, Spider-Man's identity and such. Like, but they were also still playing by old handbooks, like Christos Gage, I think, or Chris Yost. I always get those two mixed up. Whoever was working on the initiative was trying to fix the identity for Peter Parker within the narrative of his own book.
I want to say that was Gage on that one.
Okay, yeah, Gage is usually like doing the heavy lifting when it comes to that. But like, I can imagine Gage just being like, maybe they would have just leaned into it. Maybe it wouldn't have, but then, you still got one more day because Quesada's still in charge and he's not going anywhere. Quesada, of course, also has his sights set on Hollywood.
Yes.
So with the failure of Iron Man,
does that scuttle his endeavors now? Does he have to really double down and redevote himself to comics? And if so, what does that look like?
Right. What does that look like? What does a Joe Quesada who doesn't see upward trajectory look like? Or if he realigns what he sees as upward trajectory. Okay, movies are out. Or maybe he's like, screw it, I'll just if Marvel can't get me in movies, I will leave. But again, he needs to be like, he would have to have like lateral movements. It wouldn't. I don't see him leaving Marvel and then being like, hat in hand, hey, Hollywood, will you give me a job? Like,
I mean, like, well, when is Breaking Bad? When does like TV start being the hot new thing now? Does maybe Quesada think, you know, I can tell better stories on TV anyway?
I think Breaking Bad started around that same time. Like, it began in 2008. So,
right.
So I could see them. Oh, now that's interesting, because I don't think Marvel's going to stop. Like, Marvel's not going to stop trying to make movies, but maybe, Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Maybe the problem was we flew too close to the sun. Let's make Marvel TV shows.
Comics are episodic anyway. TV is episodic, and TV is replacing movies right now. Screw it. We don't need Hollywood.
Exactly. Hey, you know, Gates of Gotham comes out in 2012. Hey, another indie auteur that might have been gobbled up by Marvel if Marvel's just desperately trying to
little fellow by the name of Scott Snyder.
Yeah, and we know Scott Snyder has at least one pitch of a motorcycle riding trio of Ghost Rider, Punisher, and Captain America. So, I mean, we get a slew of crazy stuff. We know Scott Snyder also has a huge Hulk pitch. How long has he been sitting at that Hulk pitch?
Forever.
Does he get his Hulk pitch first? What does Greg Pak do?
Exactly. Where does Pak go? Do we not get Red Hulk? Because wasn't Red Hulk around that time too? Greg Pak was a big mystery.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, wow, we'd sacrifice Red Hulk for a big, cool Scott Snyder story.
Exactly. I think around that year, also, we get Old Man Logan. Maybe they lean more into alternate histories. And I mean, like, the fact is, Marvel would just keep making. They do what Marvel does. And so the thing is, we think about, like, what does Marvel do? What does Marvel do best? Like, they fuck up their own universe. They make huge line-wide decisions, and they
go back to the well.
And they go back to the well, and they overproduce. They produce too many books. So, of course, like, who is the moneymaker? If you're trying to make money, of course, you're going to lean into the X-Men, and you're going to lean into Spider-Man.
And we can keep leaning into the X-Men, too, because if we don't get into movies, we don't feel threatened by Fox and Sony, which means, screw it. We don't need to introduce no stinking Inhumans. Just keep letting X-Men doing what they're doing, paying the bills. But, hey, no Inhuman extra focus means we might not have gotten Kamala Khan Miss Marvel, or at least if we did, she would have been a mutant, and I think quickly forgotten. I think people don't like admitting that, but by making Kamala an Inhuman, she's instantly the biggest fish in a small pond. If she just became another face at the Xavier Academy, she'd be just another face in the crowd.
Maybe another sidekick for Wolverine.
Probably.
But you're not, by the way, Paul Jenkins' Inhumans comes in 2013. So you're not getting that. Unless Paul maybe around that time I could see Paul Jenkins, because 2013, he's like, hey, nobody's using Inhumans. I got a good pitch for you.
Let me do what I want. Yeah.
So you still probably get all the stuff you like about the Inhumans, you still get.
But they remain cult, and we don't have a couple of years there where they kind of took over everything.
Exactly. I also want to mention... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, too, speaking of aliens and the Marvel Cosmic set there, no Avengers probably means Thanos doesn't get fresh life breathed into him, and we probably don't have Thanos all over the place in every story. That probably remains a Starlin thing. Like, Starlin's coming back to write another Thanos. All right.
You get exactly what Starlin had done with Thanos from, like, then to now, but maybe more. Although, I think you still have Annihilation. You still kill Thanos in Annihilation, and I guess, Starlin would just do what Starlin does. Like, Starlin would just go, oh, that was a clone. That wasn't real Thanos. Didn't happen, no. Nuh-uh. But yeah, you don't get the Thanos exposure. That's the thing, is that you don't get national attention. So who are the national hero? Who's everyone's Marvel recognition? It's Spider-Man. It's the X-Men. It's Hulk. You know, like, these
general perception
Wolverine
does not change. It stays as it has always been. The villain pecking order doesn't change. Doctor Doom, Ultron, Red Skull.
Exactly. And around that time also, over on the other side of the pond, DC is having huge success with Batman movies.
Yes.
So they're thinking, this is the way it works. Obviously, DC and Warner Brothers learned their lesson or tried to learn a lesson with Batman and that Nolan trilogy where they're like, it has to be dark, it has to be real, it has to be gritty. Maybe Marvel takes their ideas from that. Maybe they're like, that's the problem. It was too, it enjoyed itself too much. It leaned into it so much. Maybe we need to ape off of Batman. Hell, maybe we need to start working, like, maybe we need to do some more Batman stuff anyway. Like, Batman's huge. He makes $1 billion. So I imagine that, you know, maybe they mend fences because like Quesada's the reason. Quesada and Levitz are the reason why we didn't have any more crossovers after JLA Avengers. But Quesada's also the reason you had the JLA Avengers crossover in the first place. But then immediately after that, he shit on them in public.
Oops.
But maybe hat in hand, DC's like, hey, listen, we got plenty of Batman to go around. You wanna do some Batman crossovers?
You want in on this,
right? You want to do some Batman crossovers? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they don't become so, you know, what is
adversarial.
Adversarial. Thank you. Yeah, they don't become so adversarial with each other. Maybe it facilitates more team ups where it's like, look, guys, I know you got hit really hard by that Iron Man. That's a shame, but you know what? A healthy you means a healthy us and healthy competition. We all work back and forth anyway. So let's try and make something happen. You know, let's share the Batman love.
Exactly.
Wow, I like that utopian vision.
Right. Oh, that's very optimistic. Also, of course, DiDio rises to power around this time, and DiDio loves. I mean, like, here's the thing: one way or another, you gotta slice it this way. DiDio loves comic books, and he loves the comic book industry, and he was a champion of the comic book industry, especially during a time when maybe the parent company of DC couldn't care less about comic books, and he was constantly innovating, or at the very least, trying to get like comics in the fore and being like, we're selling these are important, like this is our bottom line, this is where it all comes from
during the bad old days, the all or nothing days.
Yeah, exactly. But we also wanted to mention, by the way, if you wanted to sponsor today's episode, you can do so by using Super Chats, ask a question or comment, which people have already done, and I wanted to tell you, like, listen, we're not ignoring you, and I'm going to jump right into a couple right now. Hey. Cayetano Garcia, hey Joel, didn't want to see you as a punk rock fan. I did not see you as a punk rock fan after watching a Spider-Punk video.
Oh, yes. I got to kick a ton of knowledge in that video because literally 90% of the dialogue is just lyrics from famous punk songs.
That's awesome.
It feels like it was written on a dare where it's like, I bet you $100 I can't write a comic that's just punk song references. And then the writer left $100 richer when it was done.
Exactly. Spoon Lolol 2 was literally about to ask if Blade was the first. It was the first Marvel Studios. It was the first licensed Marvel movie in a post-Marvel Films era.
But still pre-MCU.
Exactly. Supreme Omega, important question. What if Disney never bought Marvel? If it was some other company, what would the MCU look like then? Would it still exist? Yeah, absolutely. If Disney didn't buy Marvel was never really for sale. That's the thing. Disney bought Marvel to own it.
Yeah.
They were trying, because of course Disney was having an interesting situation as well, where Disney was trying to buy up boy IPs.
Brands, yes. They bought the Power Rangers, they bought Star Wars eventually after the fact.
And you saw a couple of their like big budget efforts to like link in with some brands they owned. They made that like $400 million John Carter movie nobody saw.
Yeah.
They made that Lone Ranger movie that nobody saw. They made Tron Legacy, which I love and will never get anything else from. You know, just these attempts to. I imagine a Black Hole movie was not too far away.
Yeah, was that a rumor? Or was that like I think it was that, or was that real that they were going to try and bring back Black Hole?
Yeah, I think that was a rumor. I mean, they were like, "Well, Tron worked," and then it's like it didn't make any money, and they're like, "Damn it!" I love Tron Legacy, by the way. That movie,
it's really good.
The world is better for having it now. But maybe Disney is like, we have Star Wars, we don't need Marvel. We're good.
Yeah, we'll just make a Star Wars movie every year.
Yeah,
we're good.
But if the MCU had succeeded and Disney didn't buy Marvel, I mean, like Paramount was the distribution house, I think, pretty much for Marvel, and Paramount would have been like, we have Fast and Furious and Marvel, we're good.
That's all we need now. Hey, Dom Toretto and Spider-Man going on an adventure together,
right? And you look at like the budgets of those Fast and the Furious movies, like they would have been like, yeah, no, like they still, you know, we think about how Disney had Disney bucks and they were throwing at these movies, and it's like, yeah, that's very true, but at the same time, Paramount has deep pockets that you don't know about, that they were like, I mean, they created their own effing streaming service when nobody fucking asked for it. And
does that mean we'd have to find all our extended Marvel stuff on Paramount Plus now in this alternate universe we've created?
Big time. I mean, like, there's no, well, actually, at that point, because I don't know. I don't think Paramount's buying Marvel. I think Paramount's just distributing Marvel movies.
Right.
But again, they're not, because there aren't any. There's just the one, and they're like, whatever. I guess we'll throw it on Paramount Plus.
You got to think, no MCU. Does that mean no advanced like streaming wars? No like multimedia IP gobbling up? We need to create our own shared universe, because without the MCU, we lose the idea of the shared universe, assumedly in the greater subconscious, unless DC figured it out eventually. But now we wouldn't have the dark universe. We wouldn't have the Fast and the Furious spin-offs where it's like, no, everything needs to be a universe now.
Here's a really sad thread to pull, putting a pin in the universe thing, is just that if Disney doesn't have Marvel, Disney banks hard on Star Wars and loses because they don't make the money. They're making money. It's doing well, but it's critically divided.
I mean, we assume they would make them the same way. When I have to wonder, if they didn't have the MCU template, would they try and use the MCU template for Star Wars?
Nah, because Feige's not there.
Exactly.
Feige's not trying.
Exactly. Where's Feige in this? Where did Feige go?
I think what Feige's doing at this point is probably because like Feige had been a producer on a number of these Marvel licensed movies, X-Men and stuff.
Yeah.
So like Feige knows these movie people. He's probably trying to get this working.
Happening.
I could also imagine Feige being like, fuck these Hollywood assholes, I'm going to Marvel. And he just becomes like the editor-in-chief or the chief creative officer of Marvel anyway.
He does seem like one of those guys where I imagine he would be successful no matter where he went, no matter what he did. But maybe it wouldn't be making movies. Maybe it would be making comics. Like
right.
You said.
Well, it's like, I can imagine him being like, he sees Iron Man, he sees the trouble. I mean, the problem is he would go to Marvel and be like, okay, this is how you do it. I mean, like, no matter what, it's like Thanos, the MCU, I think, is inevitable. Because, I mean, like, fans across people were already hoping that, like, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was going to team up with the Tim Story Fantastic Four. Blade had Morbius in the post-credit scene before they cut it.
Yeah.
Like, they were doing it.
And know this is what people like. This will make the nerds lose their mind. And also, let us take over the nerd press as well, too, as they'll write 100 stories for free for us about this.
Yeah, remember that hilarious blooper in the X-Men 2000 movie where they run into the Statue of Liberty, then Spider-Man runs in behind them? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong movie. I mean, like, I think that you might have seen a greater collaboration between studios where they're like, all right, so this character can show up here, this character can show up here. I mean, like, they put, this is still speculation, but I believe it, that Tom Jane's Punisher stunt double is in the background of Spider-Man 2. Like, I do believe they are trying to build a shared universe, or at the very least, like, indicating it in some ways, and then being like, wouldn't it be kind of cool if this happened? Like, wouldn't it be cool if Daredevil showed up in the Raimi-verse?
I mean, the comics are connected anyway, so why shouldn't the movies?
Exactly. So you see an MCU, but like, it ain't the same thing.
It's lame and chintzy.
It's chintzy. It's lame. And what's really sad about it is like, it doesn't culminate anywhere.
No.
It's just a thing. Like, it's a rarity that when it happens, you get used to it and you get comfortable with it. But then, meh.
It's references for reference sakes, cameos for cameo's sake.
Exactly. So that's a shame. But maybe that's what you get.
Yeah.
And then you got, like, of course, Marvel reacts to when Marvel has movies. Obviously, Spider-Man Back in Black exists because Tobey Maguire's wearing a black suit in the movie.
That's true, yes. And once again, movies were steering the ship of the comics even back then, even for a bad movie.
Even for bad movies, even movies they don't even fucking own.
They still
Spider-Man got organic web shooters because he had them in the movies.
They still had to bend over backwards to contort themselves.
Exactly. The thing is, they are still autonomous. They're doing it because they think it will sell. That's the only reason they were making any movie synergy.
Yeah.
So yeah, Girk Pectus. I love MCU, but without it, we wouldn't have some of the worst movies I've seen, like Suicide Squad and even Dark Universe Mummy, that made the devil boring. I never even saw The Mummy, but I will say,
neither did I saw the trailer that they uploaded where they didn't put the music file in right, so it was just a whole thing that was all fucked up, which goes to show the level of care.
Yeah, your sound design is super important when it comes to movies and trailers. Yeah, you don't get Suicide Squad, but also, like, who cares? Like, oh no, one bad movie. They make 100 a day.
You wouldn't have gotten the good of the Suicide Squad and the good of the Peacemaker, so you know things happen for a reason.
Exactly. Kevin Kruger wanted to know if Nick Fury and Generation X's TV movies were part of Marvel films.
Ha.
Yes. Those were Marvel films. Those were not Marvel Studios productions. Those were, and really what they were they were TV pilots. Like they were just like that horrible Justice League pilot, which if you haven't seen the Justice League live action movie, it is horrible.
It's dog rough.
It is like it's 3 episodes of a really terrible, boring TV show all lumped into one. But Generation X is something else, man. Generation X is super bad. It looks like it's set on. There's a set that Max Headroom is in. I always forget that actor's name, but he plays the villain, and it looks like the fucking set dressing for Beekman's World. It's just like, what are you even doing? It looks like it looks like they filmed it on the set of the Saved by the Bell diner. Generation X, by the way, also has hardcore swearing in it for no reason.
Oh,
because I don't know. I guess they made it in England or something. Like it's really weird. RK, hey guys. First, great article, Sal. Second, if we're still thinking Disney owns Marvel, there may have been some straight to DVD animated projects.
Yeah, or some more of them at least. Yeah, that was a fun little moment there with the Hulk and the Thor and the Wolverine they did.
Those were great and exactly what they should have done, and then they just abandoned it.
They just stopped. They're like, well, why the fuck do we need to do this? We're already making money hand over fist with the live action movies and have great, audience, viewership with kids anyway, so why even bother?
Yeah, and I mean, like, DC is doing well with their direct-to-animated projects, so I can imagine that even pre-Disney, Marvel might have really leaned hard on the direct-to-DVD animated feature situation.
And because it's 2008, you can still get them at Blockbuster.
They might have worked out like the exclusivity deal with Blockbuster. And then gone down with the fucking ship. Or maybe they're innovative. Maybe they were like, no, we're working with these Netflix guys.
Yeah, these young upstarts, these young bucks called Netflix.
Yeah, and then Netflix buys Marvel.
When they're just flushed with cash.
Yeah, Netflix has nothing but money. They buy Marvel because they're like, especially when the other guys starting to leave. When Netflix starts losing their contracts, and everyone starts making their own their own streaming services. I can see
we need
Netflix
content.
Going,
we need it bad.
We need content. We need established fan bases, and we need it right now. They buy Marvel and they start developing TV shows out the wazoo, and it's a shared TV universe.
God,
it's nonstop. We got a Spider-Man TV show, an X-Men TV show, X-Men spinoffs, Wolverine the series, New Mutants, X-Force. Like, holy shit!
What an alternate universe.
I could definitely see that happening. Good call, RK. By the way, thank you very much for your kindness about my article. If you're not aware, thank you, Joel. I wrote an article for CBR. I have a featured column now every month. If it does well, if people click it, hopefully. I mean, like, that's the thing. I have it for as long as I'm relevant. But yeah, the target is once a month. I'll have a featured article where I write something, and it's whatever I want, which is kind of nice. But I'm gonna but I want it to be about comics in some way, and link it to what I do so it's relevant in some way. Because it's not just, you don't want to see me being like, it'd be really cool if they brought Night Thrasher back. Like, that's not an article. But
you mean you're not going to write about, hey, you know what the best sandwich is?
Yeah, right. What's the best Marvel cinematic sandwich? But yeah, thank you, RK. Great question. And holy crap, we went on a crazy divergence into the Netflix universe. Sam Anderson, if the MCU didn't happen, would the Ultimate Universe have continued?
That's interesting because the movie universe cherry picks so much from the Ultimate Universe to where the movies basically became the new Ultimate Universe.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, I don't think that Ultimate Universe is dictated by Marvel Cinematic. I think the Ultimate Universe still would have been fucked, and then they would have torpedoed it.
Right. Because you figure, too, so many like the characters that Marvel made, which we are now seeing pay off, had eyes to the future. And it's like, well, look, 8-10 years down the line, we want to be telling stories about new, young, ethnically diverse heroes. Again, I mentioned no Inhumans means probably no Kamala Khan. Does Bendis still make Miles? Does that still happen? Do we still have the young Marvel Revolution with Nova and all these other characters?
Sadly, yes, because these young characters are coming. Like, I think I don't know verbatim the origin of like where Miles came from, but I know it's not because Bendis saw a movie that was Marvel themed, and he needed to, like the MCU doesn't incept Bendis about why he wanted to create Miles.
Now, Bendis did it for his kids, I'm pretty sure, was
did it for his kids.
Same way Sam Alexander. I did it for my kid. Yeah.
It's tragic, the origins of Sam Alexander, but like that still happens in this universe.
Yeah. So we still do get a younger universe, but maybe they don't get as extra love and care. Maybe they cancel them sooner because they're like, we're not thinking about making movies and streaming shows about them 8 to 10 years from now.
Well, they're also not thinking like, oh, we need a Wonder Woman.
So
Captain Marvel doesn't get a big push. And so Kamala Khan has no reason to exist because Kamala, of course, is like Ms. Marvel.
So no synergy.
No synergy. I bet no Captain Marvel. I think Carol just stays as Ms. Marvel for a while because they were like, we really got it. We really got it down. That Brian Reed series is still doing okay.
Hey, if we're doing darker, more Netflix themed stuff here, maybe Jessica Jones gets to become the lady face of Marvel, as you and I had said that we would like to see.
That would have been awesome, man. Are you kidding me? Just like, Marvel, just a big middle finger to everybody else.
Hard drinking, hard living. Jessica Jones is the female face of our company.
Yeah, you do get to see, it's funny how things kind of like flip-flop between the two big houses. I could see Marvel being like, trying out imprints again, trying out more imprints and being like, you know what, let's, obviously we can keep doing our R-rated stuff. And if Netflix is encouraging it, well, the Marvel Max is only going to expand.
It's just going to keep going. Again, there's a whole Max imprint. Max is as big as Ultimate now, where we put out as many books.
Yeah, exactly. And I could see them, I could see there being like, if the Netflix thing was a thing at all, I could see that being the discussion where they're like, well, there's the all ages shows, and then there's the R-rated shows, and then there's the middle range shows, and we don't want too much overlap because we don't want to alienate anybody. Like, they're always worried about alienation, despite the fact that like then they make sweeping line-wide decisions that are the most alienating thing they could possibly do.
Yeah.
Eddie Eckenberg, I think the Guardians were able to thrive in the obscurity and became a lot less special after the movie. With no movies, I can imagine the cosmic side of Marvel still being more out there and unique.
The cosmic universe stays boxed off into itself. It doesn't, touch every single thing as it did for a few years. You'll still get the Guardians because they're attached to a good story, but they stay science fiction. They're not rowdy, space pirate, Firefly comedy characters.
You do not get the Bendis Guardians of the Galaxy run. You don't get that configuration of Guardians. The I Am Groot thing came and went. Groot says I am Groot during a run. And then he moves on and starts talking normally, like because he did before, like just whatever. That I Am Groot thing is a meme, and that's it. It's nothing. But Annihilation continues. The Annihilation sequels continue. Maybe they come up with, because Marvel loved to compartmentalize in the early 2000s and the 90s. Like it was like, Marvel Cosmic, Marvel. I could see them like breaking it up a little bit more into houses, and that's if, of course, like, they didn't get bankrupted by the failure of Iron Man.
Yeah.
But I can see them being like more, I think less about being like, this is Marvel Cosmic and this is Marvel Street and this is Marvel whatever. I could see them being more about imprints. Marvel Knights, Marvel Max, Ultimate Marvel. But Ultimate Marvel didn't work out, so I couldn't see them being like, well, that's done. Moving on.
Yeah.
Shane. Good.
I was going to say the makeup of the Avengers would be very different. Without the MCU, you probably wouldn't be getting a Marvel team anymore with all the AAA heroes. It would probably be closer to what Bendis was doing. Like, hey, I'm a writer. These are the characters I want to write about. I don't care if some of them are lesser known.
Yeah, although at the same time, I feel like, it always went back to the Trinity. Like, whenever you read Avengers, like, it always leads back to it. And Busiek did Avengers Forever, leading up to Disassembled. Disassembled still happened. New Avengers still happened. And Bendis, I don't know if he is trying to appease the Marvel movie gods by moving the New Avengers and the Mighty Avengers into one unified book that's more boring about those characters, but maybe they do. Or maybe he's like, I kind of liked those older characters, and I'd like to see them, or not those older characters, but those more established Avengers characters. And I want to see the Avengers kind of be that.
It also means, too, we could probably see more representatives where it's like, hey, here's an Avengers team with X-Men and with Fantastic Four on it and everything. We're not fighting with anyone, so everyone can be represented on the team again.
Big time. Shane Wyrostek says the question is, do we still get the El Muerto movie?
Oh, well, yes, obviously, because Sony will still be throwing darts at a board in any universe.
And what's it called? Aura in our chat also mentioned that, you know, what she touched on is that Feige and Amy Pascal are friends.
Yes.
So I guess if Marvel doesn't work out, Feige just goes to work for Sony, and the Spider-Man cinematic universe becomes the thing. So
and it might actually work this time.
Maybe you get an El Muerto FX spin-off series that's super dark, but yeah, you do get the Spider-Man movies, and then you suddenly get you get in these licensed IP Hollywood movie adaptations of characters because they're still doing that, still got to pay the bills. But meanwhile, Spider-Man is just soaring over everybody.
Spider-Man's killing it.
And they're like, maybe we could, hey, could we have Spider-Man appear in our X-Men movie or our whatever movie? Like, we're doing this. So I could see, I mean, Feige would make it work. This guy, 9947, they dropped the ball with Tron Uprising by canceling it. Great show if you missed Tron Legacy. It's true. It's a great show. Gerg Pectus, have you seen Raised by Wolves? I love that show, but people keep hoping xenomorphs show up in it. I don't. I just let them. I just want them to hint that they're there. That's good enough. Yeah, man. I've heard about Raised by Wolves.
I've seen the trailers.
I've never seen it. I would be okay with xenomorphs. Nicholas Kruger, third or fourth time catching you guys live. Hope you're doing well. You too, man. Thank you. And Tevia, if MCU never happens, could the Avengers EMH be alive? Big time. There's no change. Spectacular Spider-Man, Avengers Mightiest Heroes. You would get a Marvel Cinematic animated universe,
which they were building to before they stopped.
See, here's the thing. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. Because they were still, if they were making that, because Josh Keaton played Spider-Man in the EMH cartoon episodes, and then they dubbed over him with Drake Bell in a terrible fucking move. And as we said on the show, hashtag release the Keaton cut,
and one they live to regret too, I'm sure.
Yeah, like replace Drake Bell with Josh Keaton, put him back.
Please do. You have the audio files, I'm sure.
They still exist, or if not, he'll come back, but and record like 8 lines of dialogue. Yes, but if EMH works, or is just still continuing, and Spectacular works, and they're willing to partner up, then isn't it a matter of time before they go, I mean, wouldn't it be cool if we just made a movie with these characters and just like, and it was unrated. We could go further. We could do Secret Wars, or we could do anything. So yeah, you do get direct animated movies, even if you don't have the Netflix deal, or even if you don't go the way of like DC making animated movies. I think just having successful animated shows that are the only way you're getting moving versions of those characters, that'll succeed.
Hey, it worked well for the Timiverse and the Justice League. What if we keep going with these? What if we make an in-universe Fantastic Four show, an in-universe X-Men show?
Totally. Supreme Omega, if Inhumans never become big and overexposed, I do feel GWW and Santa would have had Kamala get her powers from radioactivity, possibly gamma energy.
Again, if they were still interested in that, we could get Kamala Khan. She might not be Miss Marvel, and she definitely might not be an Inhuman.
I'm just imagining Miss Hulk.
Yo, Miss Hulk. That'd be fun.
Hey, draw that.
Yeah, draw Miss Hulk, everyone.
Kamala Khan as like a junior She-Hulk.
Yeah, hey, we got a lot of Hulk-centric characters here, so why not? I mean, kind of, if we can have A-Bomb and we can have all these other characters.
Yeah, I guess Ms. Hulk. Yeah, Ms. Hulk.
Sure.
Axe says, hello there, guys. Lots of love from Mexico. Well, thank you very much, Axe, and welcome to the show. And Master Terrence says, would DC be so adamant of their universe being dark if the MCU Disney didn't set the tone of current Marvel?
I wonder.
I think it would, yes, and here's why. I don't think that the darkness is because of Marvel. I think the darkness comes from the Nolanverse.
Yes,
I think
that got all the critical acclaim and all the award noms and everything. They're like, this is the roadmap. We just got to keep doing this.
Yeah, Man of Steel exists because of the Dark Knight trilogy, not because of the MCU.
Them learning all the wrong lessons, which would become a major theme for them as they kept making movies, learning all the wrong lessons.
But you still get Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
He still makes Man of Steel. Like, Zack Snyder and the Snyderverse still becomes a thing. Maybe more people would be more forgiving of the Snyderverse.
Because it's the only thing you have.
The only cinematic universe you get.
Maybe, who knows?
I mean, I'm not suggesting it deserves forgiveness, but And maybe because there's no one to try and ape off of,
they take their time this time.
That's the thing, right? Like, Man of Steel is dark because of Dark Knight, but Man of Steel is still a movie. Zack Snyder's still the driving force behind Man of Steel. Because they don't have to catch up to anybody, they can take their time.
They don't.
The problem is it'll take 4 or 5 movies before we all realize, oh no, DC is not what I want.
This is bad.
Or which again, super dark. It's super miserable.
And also too, with no MCU, there's no superhero fervor. If there's no superhero fervor, then culturally it doesn't catch on is the big thing. Maybe they don't become what Hollywood bets their chips on for everything. Maybe, I don't know, the musical comes back or the Western comes back.
No, you can't Watchmen this up and be like, it's pirates. But I do genuinely believe that like superheroes were just waiting in the wings to be huge again, and movies were the thing that made it. It's why there is such a strong reaction to the Snyderverse. It's why DC movies do well when they are huge, and it's like, or when they catch big.
Yeah.
So it's I just think that's how it goes. But yeah. So in terms of comics, I don't see Marvel changing too much. I see them definitely like Marvel failed a lot in movies and TV adaptations before Iron Man. And if Iron Man failed, I don't see Marvel suddenly stopping.
No, they'd be like, well, dust ourselves off, get back on that horse.
We'll just borrow some more money and try again later, I guess. And,
I guess so.
And if and the funny thing is, if a couple of so like all these have different tangents. The Netflix TV Marvel's universe, that's a whole thing. That's one reality where Netflix buys Marvel and adapts all of Marvel into a gazillion shows. Netflix becomes a Marvel streaming service, and it's just nonstop. They would mine the crap out of all these comics.
Oh yeah,
they'd be pretty at it. They'd be pretty faithful, maybe, because they don't have like. Well, in any case, you got that. You got the animated thing where they're like, okay, movies didn't work. Let's make animated adaptations. That's that. You have the version where we made animated shows, those work, and we get to the animated adaptations that way. It's a whole different way to do it. You also have the what if Feige gets a gig through Amy Pascal and makes the Spider-Man cinematic universe.
Yeah.
If the Spider-Man cinematic universe works and Feige's there, you could still get the MCU.
One way or another. But you're right. This is Thanos. This is inevitable.
Because Feige's like, now that we got Spider-Man, I mean, like, everybody else is watching us and seeing how good we're doing. And plus, they're winning big. It's not just like we can prove we can do anything by making Guardians make $1 gazillion. We're making big because it's Spider-Man, and also they're good.
Yeah.
And Feige, he's got an itch. He wants to see Wolverine team up with Spider-Man or whatever. So he's like, come on, let's start working with other people. Let's start building up. Let's make it happen. Marvel Comics is going to take their P's and Q's from that.
Right.
Because they're like, oh, that's successful, and that's what we do. That's our template. So Spider-Man is going to be
everywhere.
Comics. He is going to be in everything. Maybe he'll lead the Avengers at that point. And especially because the Marvel's like, well, we can incept them. I mean, like, listen, you want to make an Avengers, and you're making the Spider-Man movies. I mean, he leads the Avengers right now. You got a template right here.
You should make it happen, right? See, we already, did this 3 years ago.
Yeah, so Spider-Man becomes even more high profile as a result, which I don't know if I like that. I mean, Spider fans everywhere are going to be like, nah. And Marvel's going to double down. Well, he's so big. We can't have him have an old ball and chain at home.
Yeah,
we got to make sure that shit happens. Yeah.
Got to James Bond this. We got to have a new Spider-Girl every year.
Seriously. More Spider women. Maybe Kamala Khan's a spider person.
Oh, interesting. The Spider Woman of Jersey.
Yeah. Which I'd be fine with, but
I weirdly see it working. Where's that tangent universe? Where's that in the Spider-Verse?
Right? I could see that happening. It's just an Aranya origin, but just different.
Only maybe this one sticks this time instead of Aranya.
Poor Aranya.
I know.
I found out she lost her powers. That made me so sad.
Oh, did she? When did that happen?
It was a while ago. She got them back, but like there was a period where she had no powers.
Wow.
Anyway.
Some smaller things too. The Infinity Gems stay Infinity Gems. They don't become stones.
Good.
To match up. We probably don't get Nick Fury Jr. because we needed to have our own Sam Jackson in the main universe.
I think we might have actually gotten Sam Jackson, Nick Fury in the main universe. You know, the thing is, Nick Fury in the Ultimate Universe was so successful and he
Yeah.
worked so well and everybody liked him. I think at the very least you'd have a book. You'd have one book where it's called like Furies, and it's
nice.
It's just the two of them like doing multiversal adventures because
That'd
like
be fun.
you don't need to replace Nick Fury from the 616 universe,
and they technically didn't replace him.
Well, but they did. I mean, like they made him go
they
away.
Superseded him.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, just have Nick Fury from the Ultimate Universe come in and be like, I learned a lot. I'm in now. It's me. My universe died, but I'm here now, and I'm gonna make sure it never happens here.
Hey, I like that. I'm the man on the wall.
Yeah, no, I'm the man in the chair. I'm Nick Fury now. The man on the wall's one-eyed Nick Fury with the Watcher or whatever. But yeah, you're right. The Infinity Gems stay the same. Cosmic Marvel gets more. I bet Cosmic Marvel gets more in the weeds because Dan Abnett, he's like a Warhammer guy. He's like,
oh, totally.
It's gonna get bigger and more crazy and like yeah.
You're gonna need a thesaurus to check this out.
Exactly. You know, you probably still get Wakanda going out in space.
No Agent Coulson. We'd have no Coulson, and I have to imagine, would S.H.I.E.L.D. still be... I can't believe S.H.I.E.L.D. has been gone for as long as it has.
I can't believe that either in both places, because like then you have like Nick Fury and Maria Hill doing stuff. I'm like, who do you work for?
Whoever.
Right? Like, what is this? And then they started to say, like, No Way Home, like, oh, no Damage Control. I'm like, Damage Control? Man, no. Damage Control is not a... It's not a. They're not a S.H.I.E.L.D. replacement. They're a construction company. Crew. Exactly. What are you talking about?
They got their hard hats and their lunch pails.
Yeah, these people are these boots on the ground. They clean up garbage. Don't make them into a police state. But yeah, does S.H.I.E.L.D. go away? I mean, like any of the synergy goes away. You know, Star-Lord stays Star-Lord from the Abnett run. Like,
yeah,
you get a lot of. You got a higher profile Spider-Man, and you get less. But everybody else is doing fine. Wolverine, obviously, they're happy with Wolverine. They don't change anything.
No,
you know.
Does Scott Lang get a new run because we need to make him popular again in time for the movies? We wouldn't get that excellent Spencer run. Probably. We also probably wouldn't get Nadia Pym because we don't need to create the idea that Hank has a daughter,
but that he's old.
Yeah, and that he's old, and that he has.
You probably don't get Pymtron.
You definitely don't get Pymtron. Jarvis probably stays a butler and keeps showing up because we don't have the confusion of him also being a computer in the movies.
Yep. Nope. Jarvis stays. Well, Jarvis is a beloved member of the Avengers, and so yeah. Maybe you see. I mean, like the thing is, you look at. There's a story that I heard recently, which was just like, if Batman doesn't come out, certain comic book stores can't make rent.
Yeah.
And so you know what the #1 DC book is going to be every month.
Mm-hmm. You can set your watch to it.
With Marvel, you never know what the hell the #1 book is going to be.
Sometimes it's Spider-Man.
It's Hulk for a bit. Like sometimes it's Spider-Man. You know, usually, but you never know. And that kind of unpredictability at Marvel is one of the things that's like good about the company.
It's endearing, isn't it? Because you could be on top tomorrow. You just need one good run.
Yes. Except for Daredevil, where it's a great run, and it's like, like number 5, 10.
You'll have the finest succession of writers and the greatest critical acclaim that you could ask for.
Yeah, great. What's good? What's acclaim? Can I spend it?
Not easily.
But yeah, so but you still see that at Marvel. Like Marvel's still like, we don't know what's gonna catch. Keep doing, just make it all. Whatever. Just keep going.
Yondu stays in the future.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you leave Yondu alone.
Yondu stays. Actually, Black Panther and Storm might still be married.
Oh, yeah.
They wouldn't have to break that up because of petty reasons.
Yes. Yeah, actually, you probably get Storm as Black Panther for a little while.
Yes, that would be fun.
Alden Tolbert, I would be glad if the MCU didn't exist. If it wasn't the Disney Empire or yet the Hollywood, would be glad if the superhero movies needed a break. If MCU was a reboot, it would start off with Spider-Man and the Batman style. I don't think they would be. They wouldn't ape off of Batman.
No,
Spider-Man. I mean,
we wouldn't be getting a 3-hour detective Spider-Man story.
No, you wouldn't even get like an Amazing Spider-Man from Mark Webb movie. You know, they tried that because you could feel. Amazing Spider-Man from Mark Webb, the first movie, is a blend of we can do Marvel and Nolan.
Yes. And
it's like, no, you can't.
Yes. No one wants a mystery about the parents and radioactive blood and anything like that.
But you did make but you did strike oil when you got Garfield.
Apparently so.
Tick Noros, out of curiosity, if one studio bought another, would you rather have Marvel own DC or DC own Marvel, or do you think it's best separate? This is such a it's a great question. It's a loaded question, but it's a great question, and it's tough to parse.
No one man should have all that power. Is the way I have always looked at it.
It's totally fair. That's a fair assessment. On one hand, I foresee a day when that happens, and so I try to send out at least halfway decent ideas into the ether, because if they don't have them and they still do it, it will be worse. But
that could basically be the name of our show too there, sending out good ideas into the ether and hoping for the best.
Yeah, please I hope you're listening, I guess, or at the very least, keep taking it into consideration.
But that's too long, so we went with Elseworlds Exchange.
Yeah, which is still friggin' long. Yeah, it's really a question of because DC doesn't own anything and Marvel doesn't own anything. So it's really just do you want Disney or Discovery Plus or whatever to own your IPs?
Which, hey, it might not even be Discovery Plus in a couple of years. They've gone through how many owners?
And that kind of volatility is kind of a problem, but also the streamlining and I would love it if Disney went if there was a moment where Disney went, why do you assume we're gonna make it squeaky clean? And it's because you do. And it's everybody knows once you take this thing, you're gonna turn it into this other thing. And they're like, what? But then you do anyway. You always do. And it's Disney owned Miramax, man. You could have had you don't have to always play to type. You could actually innovate or experiment. There are audiences that want to see something other than an all ages thing.
But market research has shown us that all ages appeal maximizes our profits for this quarter and overseas in the Asian market, which are more important now than ever, you see.
Yeah. That's the thing, is that's why I'll never be a billionaire. And it's because I understand those truths and I don't care. Where I'm where I'd be let's make a movie that stars these characters or whatever, and it's going to be awesome. Or let's make a comic book that has these characters, and it's going to be awesome, and we're going to have the best people on it, and they're going to make this really, really dope thing. And they're oh, if you do that, it will not sell in China, or it will not sell here. Fine. Then we will cut the budget, and we will make it work, because it's still worth making. And it's I understand that arts are a business as well, and yet there is a way, I think, to balance both without having to be if it doesn't make a gazillion dollars, it's not worth
what's even
making.
The point? Yeah.
What's the point? Why did you even do this in the first place? You could have done any other industry where you could make the same amount of money, because it's not it's a little investment. You're spending $200-400 million to make what is essentially a fake story real.
Yeah.
That's not a simple investment, man. Supreme Omega says, what if Disassembled never happened? Because that is the demarcation point for Marvel. If that didn't happen, then CW Civil War, House of M, OMD might not have existed. I disagree. I think that Disassembled is just the inevitability of getting someone like Bendis. So it's really, what if Bendis never happened? But then you don't get
playing the toy box.
You don't get the Ultimate Universe. You don't get Disassembled. You don't get it's interesting because I told a story recently on Back Issues where I was Captain America wasn't selling very well, and so they put Mark Waid and Ron Garney on Captain America. But they also didn't really count on that working, so they made the Heroes Reborn deal with Liefeld.
Yes.
But the Waid and Garney run was working. And they still canceled the book and replaced them with that.
They still fucked it up anyway.
And then when the Heroes Reborn era didn't work, and they still spent untold sums of money to do it,
and bent over backwards in their stories to make it work.
Yep. They called Waid and Garney to do it again.
Hat in hand, hey, guys.
And they said yes. And it's you can still make successes with people. I think that the Avengers, nobody. Like, you look at Avengers like Ultron Unleashed or Unlimited or Avengers Forever, and it's like it's Busiek and Perez. It's like it was starting to work.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if you don't disassemble the Avengers, do they sell as well? No, because you're not getting the shot in the arm of like Spider-Man and Wolverine are on the Avengers. You're also not getting the shot in the arm of the regular run of Avengers going like, watch them all fuck each other and die.
Yeah.
But if you are playing the long game, you could build the Avengers into something that is like a AAA selling title.
And they probably would anyway, because, necessity is the mother of invention, and, someone would have to buckle down and make it work at some point.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think that like all these other things, like I think disassembling the Avengers is inevitable. Like, and it happens all the time. It's just that
every 5 to 8 years.
Yeah, this time, Bendis threw a Quinjet at the mansion. But the reality is, like, whether it's Captain America going like, okay, 70 you were out, or staying 281 of you were out, like that happens every 10 years. Like
it could have been a metaphorical Quinjet instead of a literal Quinjet.
Yeah, they did that already. It was just that Bendis made it more literal. This guy says, are those one-up arcades in the background? Cell Studios slowly becoming the Foot Clan hideout for the first team of TV. Yeah, man, they are one-up arcades. I don't buy them all at once. I didn't buy all 3 of them because I'm not like crazy or loaded or crazy loaded. But I think I bought like 1 a year.
Nice.
But
they are really cool.
Thank you. I learned lighting recently, so I'm trying to make the show look a little better.
We are your family.
Regular menthol. Kirk Peck says, how do you think this would affect the games? Could we see Spider-Man's PS4 or board games like Thanos Rising? Totally. Oh yeah. No, the games are a totally different animal. That's licensing.
Yeah.
I think you would have seen I think Spider-Man PS4 would have been the exact same game, but more like Spider-Man 2000 from Activision, where like Human Torch shows up and Captain America shows up and Black Cat's there. Like I think more characters would have appeared in that game. It would have been a lot more like universally copacetic. It wouldn't have just been like Avengers Mansion or Avengers Towers here, and they're all gone. Atomica says Marvel method of film saved the genre of comic book films. I think it
pretty much
redefined them. But one would have said in 2000, whenever, like Batman Begins saved or redefined it at least.
It's a very chicken or egg thing, isn't it? Where it's like, well, I mean, you saved Batman, didn't you? But I think as we prove time and time again, you can just keep putting out Batman movies and people are going to keep coming to see them. But then again, you can say the same thing about Spider-Man. You can just keep making Spider-Man movies and people are going to keep coming to see them because they're the biggest thing.
Yes, but it is diminishing returns for Spider-Man. Like, Batman movies will always make a ton of money unless Arnold Schwarzenegger's in them. But, but Spider-Man movies, if they suck, they don't make as much. That's it. That's all I'd say about that. But, I like Sean D. So much for family, huh? I love that Casey Jones, he will not let it go.
Yeah.
Like, Sam Rockwell's like, oh man, we're a family, and he's like, family, you call this here and that down there family, and then they're like, they're at the site of the fight, and he's like, so much for family. Like, that was a long ride from Landman Island all the way to Midtown or downtown. It's like he's been like, family, this guy and family. He's still bragging about family. Sam Rockwell's like super depressed at this point. We've experienced a whole lifetime of insults where he went from like, you call this family? Psh, fuck you. I don't even want to know you. And they all get in the van. He's making fun of them. Everybody in the van's like, yeah, family, right? But then like it's been another 45 minutes and they're like, okay, we should ease up on the family thing. He's like, no. So much for family. It's my Ninja Turtles tangent for the day. Blue Blah Blah says, sorry I missed the stream. Have a coin. Well, thank you, man. It's totally okay. But yeah, so that's it. Do we live in a better world with the MCU than not? Joel.
I mean, such is multiverse theory. I guess we'll never know. We will just have to be confident in the fact that maybe the me I am in this world and the MCU Marvel cohabitation we have in this world is the best version of things.
Right. I mean, like, that's my hope at the very least, because I need to justify that I can't jump into other universes.
Then we don't have Rick and Morty's portal gun.
No, but and I've talked about this before, I would love to have maybe not just a portal gun, but maybe just a small one that goes into other universe so I can grab the Blu-rays.
Yeah, really, if nothing
I want to
else.
see those movies. But yeah, man, listen, we want to thank you so much for hanging out with us. And before we go, read my article over on CBR. I wrote one, and it's in the chat right now. But otherwise, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel. It does help us out, and we'll see you guys next time with a new episode of Elseworlds Exchange. We'll see what happens. I'm Sal.
Yeah, I'm Joel.
Oh, thank you, Dex Baker, for your support, man, and for your super sticker. But yeah, and watch Joel on youtube.com/CapeJoel. There's more. And we'll see you then. Bye.